Welcome back to Travel Secrets with TV's Dave Galvan. This is the show where we talk about travel, vacations, tourism, and strange little human behaviors that suddenly appear the second people step into an airport gift shop and decide they absolutely need a refrigerator magnet shaped like a lobster. That's me. Today's topic is the weird psychology of souvenir shopping, because if you think about it, souvenirs are weird. You fly thousands of miles, you experience ancient ruins, beautiful beaches, historic cities, life-changing food, and somehow what comes with you is a shot glass with a palm tree on it. Human beings are fascinating creatures, and the truth is, souvenir shopping has way less to do with objects and more to do with emotion, memory, identity, status, guilt, nostalgia, then, honestly, sometimes panic buying inside an airport terminal 15 minutes before boarding. So we're going to be diving into why people buy souvenirs, why tourists suddenly spend money on things they'd never buy at home, why gift shops are designed the way they are, why cheap souvenirs often become emotionally priceless, and why your brain completely irrational on vacation. Because vacation brain is real, and souvenir brain, totally something else. No joke. So souvenirs are proof that we were actually there. At the core of souvenir shopping is something surprisingly deep. Human beings want physical proof of experiences. That's really what souvenirs are. They're just evidence. The souvenir says, I was here, I experienced this mattered. The humans have done this forever. Ancient travelers brought home artifacts, pilgrims carried religious tokens, explorers brought back exotic objects, spices, and alcohol. Even centuries ago, wealthy Europeans on grand tours collected art and strange objects from other countries. So when someone buys, a little Eiffel Tower in Paris, they're participating in one of the oldest travel traditions on the planet. Even if the Eiffel Tower keychain is made in a factory 6,000 miles away. That part kind of gets ignored. Your brain isn't buying the object, it's buying the memory attached to the object. That's why people keep absolutely ridiculous souvenirs for decades. Nobody throws away the ugly ceramic turtle from Cancun. Nobody. The turtle survives, houses move, you get divorced, there's floods, remodels, fires, etc. But you always keep the turtle because it's emotional. It becomes that amazing trip we took in 2014. The object becomes a memory container, which honestly explains why people get weirdly emotional about some souvenir shops. Vacation brain changes spending behavior. Here's where things get really interesting. People spend money differently when they're traveling, completely differently. A person who refuses to spend $4 on coffee at home will suddenly spend $38 on handmade soap in Italy because it feels authentic. Vacation changes financial psychology. Why? Because travel creates what psychologists sometimes call an escape mindset. Normal rules temporarily disappear. Budgets feel less real. Time feels different. People become emotionally impulsive. And businesses, they know this. Oh man, do they know this? That's why souvenir shops are usually located next to an exit, near a tourist location, inside an airport, or something besides a location that's generally people have an emotion with. You just climbed Machu Picchu. There's a gift shop. You just exited a museum. It exits right into a gift shop. You just had a magical dolphin encounter. Boom! Gift shop. $49 dolphin hoodie. These businesses hit people on emotional highs, and emotional highs destroy rational spending. That's why people buy things on vacation that make no sense later. You get home and look at something you bought and you think, why did I spend $60 on a coconut carved into the shape of a pirate? It's vacation brain, that's why. Souvenirs reduce fear of forgetting. This is one of the biggest psychological reasons people buy souvenirs. People are terrified of forgetting their experience. And honestly, that fear is justified because memories do fade. The details disappear, the smells disappear, the emotions fade over time. Souvenirs kind of become anchors. A small object can instantly reconnect somebody to an experience emotionally. You see an old concert ticket? You suddenly remember that entire night. Same thing with travel souvenirs. A coffee mug from Rome isn't really about the coffee. It's about the streets, the weather, the people you travel with, the version of yourself that existed during that trip. And that's a huge part of travel psychology. People often miss who they were on vacation. Vacation versions of ourselves feel happier. Less stressed, more adventurous, more alive. Souvenirs become more emotional time machines back to that version of ourselves. That's why even cheap objects can become deeply meaningful. Souvenir shopping is also about identity. Let's get into that really weird part. A lot of souvenir shopping isn't about memory, it's about identity. People buy souvenirs that reflect the image they want to have. And that's why tourists often buy local art, handmade crafts, cultural clothing, luxury goods, exotic foods, because souvenirs communicate something socially. They tell a story. People want others to see that they're worldly, they're adventurous, cultured, and sophisticated. That's why luxury travelers often avoid obvious tourist souvenirs. They don't want the neon Cancun shot glass. They want a handcrafted leather or boutique jewelry or local artwork. It just feels more exclusive, more refined, more, I'm not like other tourists, even though technically, yeah, they are. Just tourists with better luggage. Gift shops are engineered to manipulate you. Let's expose the evil genius of the souvenir industry. Gift shops are psychologically engineered, and I'm serious about this. Everything is intentional. The layout, the music, the smells, product placement. You know why souvenir stores are cluttered? Because clutter creates discovery behavior. Your brain thinks there could be treasure here. That's why people spend 20 minutes digging through shelves of absolute nonsense. Tour stores also use scarcity psychology constantly. Exclusive, limited edition, only available here. That phrase alone destroys rational thinking. Suddenly people panic buy, especially near the end of their vacation, because now there's emotional urgency. This is my last chance. Airports are the master of this. Airport souvenir shopping is basically emotional hostage negotiation. You're tired, emotionally drained, your vacation is ending, you're trapped behind security, perfect conditions for irrational purchases. And that's why people suddenly decide that they need, big, huge Toblerones or local whiskey, expensive chocolates, and hoodies with a picture of whatever airport you're in. But airports know exactly what they're doing. The souvenir guilt effect. There's another strange psychological pressure buying gifts from people back home. This creates what is called souvenir guilt. People feel obligated to prove they thought about others while they were traveling. So now they're wandering gift shops desperately to buy something for their coworkers or relatives or the person next door. And usually the process becomes very stressful, especially because souvenir gift shopping is weirdly impossible. You suddenly realize I actually have no idea what my cousin likes, so people default to generic local junk, and everybody knows it. Nobody has ever genuinely needed a spoon with Jamaica written on it. But we continue the tradition anyway, because socially, souvenirs symbolize connection. I traveled somewhere and remembered you, even if they remembered you as snow globe. So you would have thought that smartphones would have kind of ended souvenir shopping, but they didn't. In fact, souvenirs still thrive because physical objects are going to hit you differently psychologically. Photos are infinite now. They're cheap, they're disposable, they're forgotten in the cloud storage forever, but physical objects occupy space in real life. That matters emotionally. You pass by a souvenir every day, it becomes part of your environment, part of your identity. That's powerful. And honestly, some souvenirs become family artifacts. Parents hand them down. Kids remember them. Stories get attached. That weird mask from Venice eventually becomes, oh yeah, Dad bought this on that Italian trip a couple years back. And suddenly it's emotional history. So in the end, souvenir shopping really isn't about stuff. It's about memory and emotion and identity and fear of forgetting and the human desire to hold on to moments that disappear too quickly. And travel is temporary, way too temporary. Souvenirs trick us into believing we can bring a tiny piece of those experiences home forever. And maybe that's why we love them so much. Even the really tacky ones, especially the tacky ones, because years later, those objects often outlive the vacation itself. And somehow a cheap little magnet will carry an entire chapter of your life inside it, which is honestly kind of beautiful. And also explains why your aunt still owns 27 ceramic dolphins from Florida vacations in the 1990s. Some mysteries of humanity may never be solved. Well, that's it for today, and that's it for this week. Thank you very much for joining us on Travel Secrets with TV's Dave Galvan. This is TV's Dave Galvan saying we'll see you next week.